28 children went into the water and never came out. Not in a war zone, not in some forgotten corner of the world, right here in America. But what if I told you this isn't just about drowning? What if I told you you're next? Not in the way you think, but in the way this world is silently pulling us under. While you're watching reels, they're writing headlines in real blood. While you're busy living fast, something slow and deadly is creeping into our homes, our families, our future. This isn't just a tragedy, it's a warning. And not for them, for you. Because this story isn't about the 28 lives we lost. It's about the millions we're still losing in silence. What's killing them isn't just water. It's the absence of presence, the virus of distraction, the lie that says, it can't happen to me. Stay with me. What you're about to hear may be the realest thing you've heard in years. And once you hear it, you won't be able to forget it. 28 children drowned in America. 28 young lives lost, not in war, not in violence, but in still, silent waters that swallowed their futures whole. But this isn't just about water. It's about us. It's about how far we've drifted from what matters. Because behind every one of those deaths is a gap, a moment when someone wasn't paying attention, when safety was assumed, when responsibility was passed like a baton nobody wanted to carry. These weren't isolated tragedies. They were preventable. They were echoes of a much deeper problem that's been growing for years, the loss of presence. We live in a world so loud, so fast, so endlessly distracted, that even when we're in the same room, we're miles apart. Parents are glued to screens. Caregivers are overworked and underpaid. Leaders are busy chasing headlines while communities crumble in the background. And in all that noise, our children, our most precious gift, are slipping through unnoticed. Not because we don't love them, but because somewhere along the way we stopped showing it with our time, our awareness, and our protection. We assume someone else would look after them. I refuse to pretend that we still care. We assumed someone else would teach them. We assumed someone else was watching. But water doesn't care about assumptions. It's unforgiving, unbending, and fast, just like life. You turn your head for one moment and everything changes. These 28 children didn't just fall into a pool or a lake. They fell into the cracks of a society that's forgotten how to slow down and pay attention. They are the price of comfort zones, of busyness disguised as productivity, of a culture where we react to tragedy but don't prevent it. Every headline is a heartbreak. Every statistic is a story that ended too soon. We have to look at this not as a rare event, but as a mirror, a warning, a wake-up call. Because it's not just drowning in water, it's drowning in neglect, in distraction, in a broken system of priorities. These kids didn't just lose their lives, we lost them. And if that doesn't shake us to our core, then we've lost something even greater, our ability to care before it's too late. We're living in a time where being physically present means almost nothing if your mind and soul are somewhere else. The screens in our hands have become louder than the voices of our children. Our attention spans are shrinking, our patience is thinning, and the sacred moments, the quiet ones, where real connection happens, are disappearing. These 28 children who drowned didn't just vanish in water. They vanished in a society where eyes are open, but focus is gone. We check in, but we don't tune in. We sit at the dinner table, but we don't talk. We hear the laughter or the cries in the next room, but we don't move. We hear, but we're not really here. Distraction is the new epidemic. And while the world races ahead, our children are left waiting for eye contact, for conversations that matter, for hands to hold and voices that guide. We're losing them. Not to violence, not to poverty, not even to illness, but to absence. And it's a different kind of grief when the loss comes not from what we couldn't do, but from what we didn't even notice. It's easy to blame the world, to point at bad luck or accidents, but deep down we know the truth. Presence could have saved them. One more watchful second, one less glance at the phone, one decision to engage instead of scroll. We've traded parenting for management. We've replaced mentorship with convenience. And in doing so, we've left a generation growing up around us, but feeling invisible. They're searching for attention, and when they don't find it from us, they find it somewhere else. Online, on the streets, in silence, and the danger in that silence is loud, because it's in those unnoticed moments that tragedies are born. Not always in water, sometimes in depression, sometimes in isolation, sometimes in decisions they make when no one's looking because no one was looking. It's telling us to slow down, to show up, to lock in, because our presence isn't just comfort, it's safety, it's protection, it's the barrier between them and the chaos outside. And if we're not giving that, what are we really giving? These children weren't lost in an instant. They were lost in the pattern of distraction we've come to accept. And that has to change. Drowning isn't always about water. Sometimes it's about silence, about being surrounded by people yet feeling unseen. The kind of drowning that happens when a child walks through life carrying weights no one else can see, sinking deeper into emotional confusion, mental pain, and spiritual emptiness. We often think of tragedy as something that happens suddenly, but some tragedies unfold slowly, invisible, quiet, unnoticed. That's what's happening to so many young people today. They are drowning in fear, in isolation, in pressure to be perfect, in a world that barely gives them space to breathe. And while we focus on physical safety, we miss the deeper cries for help. When a child feels unheard at home, ignored in school, or unloved in their own environment, the soul begins to collapse long before the body ever does. They stop speaking, they stop trusting, and eventually they stop believing in their own worth. That's a kind of death too, not of the body, but of hope. And when that hope dies, the outcomes can be just as devastating. Suicide rates, self-harm, anxiety, depression. These aren't just statistics. These are forms of drowning that society doesn't see because it's too busy, too distracted, or too indifferent to look beneath the surface. The 28 children who physically drowned remind us of how fragile life is when left unattended. When failed to acknowledge what is always there without looking under the hood. The sorriest fact that these lives are fragile life is when left. That's the cost of it. Some of the life's most difficult, most dangerous times, the most moments, but they also remind us that danger doesn't always look like danger. Sometimes it looks like a quiet kid in a crowded room. Sometimes it looks like a smile covering sadness. Sometimes it looks like a child who never causes trouble, so no one checks in. We can put fences around pools, but who's guarding their hearts? Who's protecting their minds from the poison of comparison? From the pressure of perfection? From the pressure of perfection from the emptiness of disconnection. We built a world where image is louder than emotion, where performance is valued more than presence. And in that world, kids are not just at risk of drowning in water, they're at risk of drowning in loneliness, in expectation, in neglect disguised as freedom. And if we don't start acknowledging these invisible drownings, we'll keep losing more than lives. We'll lose the very generation meant to lead us forward. What happened to those 28 kids is a wake-up call, not just about where we watch, but how deeply we care. Most of the 28 children who drowned came from vulnerable communities, neighborhoods where safety is a luxury, where public pools are unsupervised, where education around danger is limited, and where the system turns a blind eye until the damage is irreversible. These aren't just isolated incidents. They're evidence of a larger problem, one that exposes the quiet inequality built into the very fabric of society. When a tragedy like this strikes, the media flashes headlines for a moment, officials offer scripted condolences, but then everything fades, and the people who needed the most protection are left forgotten once again. This isn't just about parenting or supervision. It's about decades of neglect. It's about generations of being told that some lives matter more than others. In wealthier areas, tragedies like these are rare because prevention is prioritized. There are safety measures, certified lifeguards, access to swimming lessons, and parents with the time and resources to be present. But in underprivileged communities, there are more distractions, more struggles, and fewer safety nets. Parents are working 2 jobs, stretched thin just to survive, while their kids are left in environments where danger is one wrong step away. And when disaster strikes, these families are the ones blamed. No one looks at the system that failed them. No one questions the absence of funding, the lack of public education, or the barriers that make even the simplest safety precaution feel out of reach. This isn't just tragic, it's unjust. These children didn't die because their families didn't care. They died because society didn't care enough to make their safety a priority. Because for too long, vulnerable communities have been told to fend for themselves, to survive in silence, but survival shouldn't be the standard. Protection, dignity, and opportunity should be. And when we ignore that, when we accept that only some communities get protection while others get prayers after tragedy, we allow injustice to grow roots that suffocate futures before they even begin. What happened to those 28 children is more than a painful statistic. It's a mirror held up to the system, exposing the imbalance of attention, resources, and compassion. And if we walk away from that mirror without changing what we see, we're not just allowing tragedy, we're enabling it. The loss of those children isn't just a loss for their families, it's a loss for all of us. The real warning behind the drowning of these 28 children has nothing to do with water and everything to do with awareness. It's a wake-up call for every one of us who thinks we still have time to pay attention later, to care later, to act later. Because the truth is, later is already too late for those families. And if we keep living like this, disconnected, distracted, drowning in our own noise, then the next tragedy will be even closer to home. This isn't just about supervision at pools. It's about a collective cultural sleep where real dangers are ignored until they explode. It's about the growing numbness in society where we scroll past suffering, where headlines vanish in hours, where grief is packaged for attention but quickly forgotten. We're raising a generation in a world that doesn't stop for pain anymore. Everything moves so fast that even loss gets buried under the next trend. But real warning doesn't shout, it whispers. And the whisper in this tragedy is piercing. If we don't slow down, if we don't take back control of our focus and our presence, we will continue to lose the most innocent among us. Because when adults are too busy to look up, children fall through the cracks. Not just in water, but in schools, in streets, in their own homes. We've let technology replace connection, convenience replace care, and speed replace substance. And the cost of that trade is not measured in missed calls or unread messages. It's measured in lost lives and broken families. The warning is simple, but it's hard to swallow. We've become too comfortable with danger, too desensitized to loss, too delayed in love. Every moment we think we have later to teach our children, guide them, protect them, is a moment that could vanish without notice. What these 28 children endured should make us all stop, not just in grief, but in transformation. Because if we continue ignoring the signs, if we treat every alarm like background noise, we will wake up one day to a world where it's not just a few lives lost, it's an entire generation drowning in our absence. That's the warning, and this time we better listen. This tragedy is more than a headline. It's a personal call to every soul with a conscience. 28 children lost their lives, but their loss is not just about them. It's about what we're all failing to protect. This is not only the responsibility of governments, schools, or safety organizations. It's a test for parents, teachers, community leaders, and every individual who claims to care. Because protecting children isn't just about locking doors or warning them about strangers. It's about being emotionally available, spiritually present, and consistently aware. It's about understanding that every moment with them is a chance to teach, to guide, to show them they matter. And in a world that is becoming increasingly detached and emotionally cold, that kind of protection is revolutionary. We often underestimate how much children absorb, how deeply they feel, and how much they depend on the adults around them to feel secure. They may not always speak it, but they notice everything. They notice when you're too busy. They notice when you look through them instead of at them. They notice when your love is more routine than real. And when they start to feel invisible, the world begins to pull them under. Maybe not all at once, maybe not with water, but with loneliness, with confusion, with a craving for attention that can turn into desperation. If we don't protect them holistically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, then even if they survive the physical world, they're still at risk of drowning inside. This is the moment where the excuse of "I didn't know" can no longer stand. We do know. We've seen what happens when we don't show up. We've read the statistics, heard the cries, seen the funerals. The question is, what are we going to do differently? What are we going to do differently? Because the only thing more painful than loss is knowing it could have been prevented. If this moment doesn't light a fire under us to step up, to watch our children closer, to listen more deeply, to be present more intentionally, then we've already failed them a second time. This isn't about fear, it's about love in action. It's about turning awareness into responsibility and heartbreak into protection. Because the next child that slips away might be one we knew. And if we could have done something, said something, changed something, then that burden is ours forever. 28 children are gone, not because the world is evil, but because it stopped paying attention. Their loss is a mirror, showing us the cost of distraction, the weight of our silence, and the danger of thinking, it won't happen to me. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a test of whether we're still capable of seeing beyond our screens, of showing up when it counts, of loving our children in a world designed to keep us distracted. If we fail to learn from this, if we walk away unchanged, then we aren't just losing children to drowning, we're losing a generation to indifference.